Thank you, Chairpersons. I'm supposed to talk on acute liver failure, autoimmune hepatitis presenting as acute liver failure. So when I started reading about this topic, when I started preparing my talk, I realized that what we're dealing with here is a heterogeneous group, which has very sparse literature published. Actually speaking, there's a lot of fallacy about everything in autoimmune hepatitis presenting as acute liver failure. You start with the definition, which Dr. Dhiman has very clearly enunciated. The same criteria, the same fallacies you have in diagnosis of ALF apply to ALF, AIH also. You have a problem in diagnosis. You have a problem in treatment. You don't have clear-cut prognostic markers. I thought I'll highlight each of these in my talk here. Also, I realized, although it is sparsely reported, it is not uncommon. I'll try to highlight all of these in my talk as of now. Something wrong? Okay. So till early 1990s, actually the diagnosis of autoimmune hepatitis required a 6-month disease activity. So that precludes any diagnosis of acute autoimmune hepatitis, leave alone the acute fulminant hepatitis here. It's only that when the first report of autoimmune hepatitis causing acute liver failure came in 1990. There's something wrong with this here. So only when the first report of ALF caused by autoimmune hepatitis, which came in 1990, was it realized that we need to have separate definitions here. So the International Autoimmune Hepatitis Group, which met in 1993 initially and subsequently in 1999, waived off the 6-month criteria, hence paving the way for diagnosis of acute autoimmune hepatitis and acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, as ALF is commonly called here. Just to brief you about the clinical presentations, just to remind all of us that 40 to 60% of patients who have autoimmune hepatitis, they present with chronic autoimmune cause, fever, weight loss, fatigue, intermittent jaundice. Almost 1/3 now is recognized that they present as acute hepatic illness, classical rise in liver transaminitis, jaundice, with a short duration of illness. Complication of portal hypertension at the time of presentation is only seen in 10 to 15% of patients, and acute liver failure has been reported in 5 to 10% of total patients of autoimmune hepatitis. Acute liver failure is more popularly known as acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis in this setting, just to differentiate between the ALF of any etiology versus autoimmune. It is more commonly seen in autoimmune hepatitis type 2. Mind you, cirrhosis at presentation is almost seen in 1/3. That means each one of these, chronic autoimmune hepatitis, acute hepatitis, complication of course, and acute liver failure, they may have underlying cirrhosis irrespective of the clinical presentation. So almost 1/3 of all patients, autoimmune hepatitis at the time of presentation will have cirrhosis. Acute autoimmune hepatitis again is a myriad. It's a set of multiple presentations. You may have a chronic undiagnosed disease in a patient who has a spontaneous autoimmune exacerbation presenting as autoimmune hepatitis. Then you have acute de novo hepatitis. That means the patient did not have a liver disease. If you do a biopsy, you see acute changes. There's no evidence of chronicity here. This is acute de novo autoimmune hepatitis. Then you may have what you call acute on chronic liver disease. You have a chronic undiagnosed hepatitis. You have superimposed injury in form of hepatitis A or hepatitis E or any drugs, which may make the patient present as an acute autoimmune hepatitis, not actually as this thing. And finally, you have a category called acute aftermath autoimmune hepatitis. This represents the subset of patients who develop acute hepatitis illness as a first presentation of autoimmune hepatitis as a response to immunomodulator therapy. The most commonly drug which has been implicated is interferons, which we all commonly use. Also drugs like minocycline, doxycycline have been implicated to cause acute aftermath. And especially after liver transplant, the patients who did not have autoimmune etiology as a cause of liver transplant, they may develop autoimmune hepatitis. Again, this comes into a acute aftermath autoimmune hepatitis. What we need to realize here is each one of these 4 categories may present as acute liver failure. The acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis at presentation, although the clinical presentation may still be the same, but it may be one of these 4 categories, hence making it a variable group. The problems in definition of acute autoimmune or fulminant acute liver failure have been very well highlighted by Dr. Dhiman in the previous talk. I'll just develop very little here in my talk here. See, classically speaking, I'll talk about acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis here. I'll not talk about ALF in general. So, classically speaking, acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis was defined as jaundice, coagulopathy, with grade 2 or more encephalopathy in any patient. Now the problem here is that if you see all the literature which is published, which is I believe 10 to 15 case series or case reports, a vast majority of acute severe autoimmune hepatitis also have been included in this in the subset of acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis. That means many of these patients actually did not have encephalopathy at the time of presentation. So just jaundice with a raised INR, more than 1.5 have been included, again making it a very variable group. The confusion between acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, acute subfulminant autoimmune hepatitis, again varies from which part of the globe we are talking about. In French, they say if the jaundice encephalopathy is less than 2 weeks, it's fulminant, and 2 to 12 weeks, it's subfulminant. Japan, they say less than 10 days is fulminant, and 10 days to 8 weeks is fulminant. Similarly, all these criteria are very confusing, as previously highlighted. Now it has been, after the ASLD paper, which Dr. Dhiman and the subsequent speaker also talked about, it has been accepted that time duration of encephalopathy to jaundice less than 26 weeks is the standard definition for ALF and for acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis. Thing which we need to remember here is, here there is a distinction from ALF. Even if you have cirrhosis at presentation, even if the patient of autoimmune hepatitis has cirrhosis at the presentation and the clinical disease itself, the presentation itself is limited to 26 weeks, it is still diagnosed as acute liver failure. Still diagnosed as acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, the therapeutic inclination being absolutely the same whether you have cirrhosis or you have no cirrhosis. So that is some distinction between these. The problem in diagnosis of acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, again, it's a grave problem. Why? You are supposed to follow the revised diagnostic criteria which was published in 1999 by the International Autoimmune Hepatitis Group. Now, we all remember that autoimmune hepatitis criteria, less than 10, no autoimmune hepatitis, 10 to 15 probable, more than 15, definite autoimmune hepatitis. The problem is, in acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, serum IgG levels are normal in 25 to 40% of patients. Autoantibodies are either absent or less than 1:40, that is below the detectable titers in almost 40% of patients, and the histology is atypical. If you remember, the diagnostic criteria greatly rely on these three things. They rely on IgG levels, autoantibodies, and histology in addition to other criteria. So if all three are atypical, it is very difficult to actually diagnose definite autoimmune hepatitis, even with a biopsy in acute liver failure. So at best, you can get the diagnosis of autoimmune hepatitis in acute fulminant is a probable autoimmune hepatitis. It is rare that you get a definite autoimmune hepatitis diagnosis in a patient of acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis. So that underlines why it is so underreported. There's a difficulty in diagnosis, there's a problem in definition, everything is complicated here. This is something I thought I'll discuss. If you see ALF as a group, and you see the frequency of autoimmune hepatitis being the cause of ALF, the frequency varies from country to country. It has been maximally reported in Japan. Various studies say, many studies say even up to 16% of ALFs in Japan have been reported to be due to autoimmune hepatitis. Africa around 8%, North America 6%, Britain 3%, Pakistan. There's one report from Pakistan also which says that 2% of your ALFs are due to autoimmune. But surprisingly and interestingly enough, from our country, we have almost 2,500 acute liver failure patients reported in various studies, mainly from All India Institute and PGI. And we have not categorized autoimmune hepatitis as a cause in any of these trials. I tried to dig out every single trial we have published from our country. All trials say others. Hepatitis causes, drug-induced causes, and others. So not even a single paper talks about autoimmune hepatitis as a cause of acute liver failure in our country, despite having almost 3,000 patients in literature as of now. What is other interesting part is, if you see all trials of acute liver failure, 20 to 50% of all patients are cryptogenic. Now, if you actually apply the diagnostic criteria for autoimmune hepatitis in these cryptogenic, I believe many of them will turn out to be autoimmune. So it is underreported, but it is not uncommon. I would say if you go ahead and try to diagnose your patients, it's a common condition. Almost 5 to 10%, at least 10% of your patients will be autoimmune fulminant hepatitis. I just tried to dig out our data, the number of transplants we have done and how many were acute liver failure. So what we found out was, over a period of almost 6 years, we did 918 transplants, of which 49 were due to acute liver failure, that is around 5.3%. And of these, 5 were autoimmune hepatitis. That makes it around 10% in our cohort. So 10% of our transplants for acute liver failure have been due to autoimmune hepatitis. We've been wiser because here we have histopathology. The explant livers are available, so you can actually give points and you can make a probable diagnosis of autoimmune hepatitis here. But it is not uncommon. Just brief about the follow-up of these patients. The 3-month survival in these patients was 87%. Most of these guys died of sepsis. which is standard in acute liver failure transplanted patients. In autoimmune hepatitis, however, all 5 survived. I don't know what's the difference, too little the number to say that actually it makes a difference or not. Prognostic markers. You can understand that if you have such less data, how can you convincingly talk about prognostic markers in this? Now, most of this data, which I'm presenting here, has been published by a single center, Mayo Clinic, by Dr. Albert Yaya. So almost, I think, 3 of these 4 has been paper from his center. One of the papers which was published, I believe, in 2007, said that if the MELD score is more than 12, then the sensitivity to predict treatment failure, that is steroid treatment failure, is 97%. And the need for transplant, almost all patients in that sub-paper who had a MELD more than 12 required a transplant. If you decide to give treatment to these patients, I'll talk about the treatment part subsequently in very brief. When you give treatment to these patients, the surrogate markers of predicting improvement are improvement in MELD score at 1 week. If your patient is not improving at 1 week, that means if he is worsening MELD, he is 100% going to die. If it's not improving, remaining same, then the sensitivity of death mortality is 85% in these cases. If there is no improvement at 2 weeks after steroid therapy, the sensitivity is 100%. And if the bilirubin is improving at the end of 2 weeks on steroid therapy, then the probability of patient surviving more than 6 months is 98%. So steroid treatment is actually going to tell you which of these patients are going to require transplant and which is not going to require transplant. I'll develop on this subsequently more in my talk. This is one paper which caught my attention. This is published from Japan. This is published last year in Hepatology Research. This is not only acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, this is ALF in general. But 15% of these patients of ALF were autoimmune fulminant hepatitis. So I thought, let's just discuss the prognostic criteria which have been published from Tokyo. They have given a score to each of these 6 criteria. OC is jaundice encephalopathy interval. Then you have prothrombin time, bilirubin, you have direct to total bilirubin ratio. Interestingly, as the amount of indirect bilirubin rises in the blood, the prognosis becomes worse in acute liver failure. So in this subgroup, this is almost 421 patients. If you have a score of more than or equal to 5, the probability of death is 84%, and if you have a score less than 5, then only 30% of these patients dies, giving it a positive predictive value of 84% and a sensitivity of 80%. And specificity of 76%. That's quite good as per any standards which we have discussed, and this is a recent paper. Actually, we can try and validate this criteria. Obviously, it needs validation in all our populations, but this is something which I thought is of interest. Conventional management in acute liver failure, you have a 50% survival. In autoimmune fulminant acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, the survival is much less. Without steroids, without transplant, the probability of survival in these patients would be less than 20%. So the question is only 2. Question are only 2 in these patients. What is the role of steroids, and when do we need a transplant in these patients? I'll just try to answer each of these. I'll just take 1 more minute. If you see the case series reported, with steroids, the response rates have been varying from 20 to 100%. And obviously they have their own limitations. But the problem is if you continue steroids for too long in a patient who's not responding, you actually jeopardize transplant. And the response in these patients actually depends on the promptness of diagnosis and the treatment. How early you diagnose, how bad the patient has been. I would think that 1 to 2 weeks steroids, which I talked about in prognostic markers, which should give you a fair idea that which patient is responding and which patient is going to transplant. This I've already discussed. So management plan should be, in the currently available literature, with whatever data we have, small amount of data we have, should be, if you diagnose the acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis, if the MELD score is more than 12, please prepare for transplant. Your preparation are going to take you 4 to 5 days. In the meantime, start the patient on prednisolone 60 milligram per day, or 100 milligram TDSF choline, it's an equivalent dose. If the MELD is worsening at 1 week, go ahead, do a transplant. If it is not, wait for 2 weeks. If there is no improvement at 2 weeks, go ahead and do a transplant. That's what I would say the gist of management of acute fulminant autoimmune hepatitis would be. Salvage therapies I'll skip because they are untested, have only single case reports are available. To summarize, my friends, acute fulminant hepatitis is underreported but not uncommon. 5 to 10% of autoimmune hepatitis present as acute liver failure, and 5 to 15% of all acute liver failures have underlying autoimmune hepatitis etiology. Diagnosis of AH-ALF is difficult and often probable. You cannot make a definite diagnosis. 20 to 60% of autoimmune fulminant hepatitis respond to corticosteroids. MELD more than 12 at presentation and no response to steroids is a good prognostic marker for the need of transplant, not prognostic marker. And liver transplantation for autoimmune-induced acute liver failure has excellent survival rates. Thank you.